What's happening, you guys? So, me and my daughter watched Toy Story 1 and 2 the other day. I already got my Toy Story 1 review up. I'm just doing my Toy Story 2 review now. We're going to see Toy Story 4 today in theaters, so I'm hoping to get Toy Story 3 at least watched before we go see it. But yeah, this will be my review for Toy Story 2, which came out in 1999, November 22nd. It's got a runtime of 95 minutes, which is about an hour and 35 minutes. It's directed by John Lasseter again, who directed the first one and went on to make A Bug's Life. And there's a couple of Bug's Life nods in this movie, and I don't know how I never really noticed them before. I probably have, and I'm just I'm more older now, and I'm just cluing into all these small little things. But yeah, the movie's starring Tom Hanks again as Woody, Tim Allen again as Buzz, and Joan Cusack as Jessie, who plays the crazy mom from Shameless, who's like a germaphobe and stuff. And as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, wow. I never realized that. Even when I was watching Shameless, I never knew I knew her from anything. But it's got Kelsey Grammer, who plays Stinky Pete. He's from Frasier. He did awesome. Wayne Knight is Al the Toy Collector. He's the big chubby guy from Seinfeld and Jurassic Park. The guy nobody likes. He's funny though. I love his voice. And there's many other returning cast members in this, and I love all the voices. I love all the picks they chose for all the characters. It's awesome. The cinematography it only got better since the first one. There's more details. The toys look more smoother. It definitely improved from the first one. The first one was terrific. So, the score is by Randy Newman. I kind of personally thought the score in this movie wasn't, like, it was good, don't get me wrong. He did awesome, but it just wasn't quite as memorable as the first one, and it just kind of felt like a rehash of the first movie, not so much new songs, which I don't have an issue with. I just felt it could have been a little better. So basically, the story, Woody gets kidnapped by a collector while attempting a rescue mission. Buzz and the gang set out to save him, but Woody winds up making new friends while he's gone, and enemies. So that's just the story without me going into any spoilers, and then I'm gonna dive into spoilers here in a sec. But I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. I loved everything about it. It's literally the perfect sequel, except for the fact that I just felt the score wasn't quite up to expectations compared to the first one. And the score was awesome. That's why a 9.5 out of 10, just because it wasn't quite as memorable as the first one, I thought it could have been just slightly better. But yeah, no, overall I give it a 9 out of 10. I loved it. It's basically the perfect sequel, aside from the score. But that, even then, like, it is the perfect sequel regardless, right? So, yeah, I'm going to dive into spoilers here. This is just, I made lists of just some of my favorite sequences in the movies. There's quite a few in this one, so this might wind up being a little longer than I was hoping, but whatever. It is what it is. So the movie starts out, and Rex is playing a Buzz video game, and it looks pretty intense, and it actually reminded me, I used to play a Toy Story game for the N64, or I want to say it was the N64. I don't remember what system. Maybe the PlayStation one. I feel like it was the N64. But I used to play a Toy Story game, and it reminded me a lot of that. But yeah, right shortly after, Buster, the new dog, just storms in and starts wrecking the place, and then Woody starts playing with him. Like, even rewatching it this time, I completely forgot that Woody starts playing with him. I was like, oh crap. But yeah, I love that. It's like it literally felt like it picked off right where the last movie ended. Like, maybe a couple months or weeks later, obviously. But not long after this happens, Andy's playing with Woody and Buzz, and Woody's arm actually tears. And this causes Andy to not be able to take Woody to cowboy camp. And actually, Woody winds up having this crazy nightmare, Andy not wanting him and all this stuff. But it made me think that maybe his arm, at the end of the first Toy Story, he's getting pulled by that Sid's dog, and you hear a little tear, but you don't see nothing. It made me wonder, I wonder if that tear started from the dog, and then Andy just kind of made it worse. It's just something to think about. Nothing crazy or nothing, right? But yeah, an injured Woody and Buster embark on a mission to save, I think his name is Squeakers or Squeaky or something. The little penguin guy, the Squeakers broke in him. Anyway, he got thrown in the yard sale, so Woody goes to try and save him. And while he's there, he winds up getting stolen by Al the Collector. And I always remember watching this when I was a kid and just fearing for Woody, just terrified to see what was going to happen with this big greasy guy just took him from Andy, right? I was definitely fearing for him, and that's something these movies did good. Make you actually feel for the characters, and they're just little toys, so I love that. Woody's then taken to Al's apartment, which is just full of Woody memorabilia and all this stuff about Woody and his old show, and he winds up meeting Jesse there. Meets Jesse, Bullseye, and still mint in the package, Stinky Pete the Prospector, and they show Woody his old TV show about him and the gang, I guess, and he loves it, but he still misses Andy. And while this is all happening, the gang, like Buzz and them, set out on a rescue mission for Woody. But yeah, now that I'm older, seeing this apartment, it reminds me a lot of myself to an extent. I'm not that crazy about one character, but like I collect my movies, my comics. I have a bunch of Funko Pops on a shelf, and it kind of, seeing all that Woody stuff kind of was reminiscent of myself in a weird way. But yeah, Al winds up ripping Woody's arm completely off at one point. And in an attempt to save his arm, Woody's like sneaking through this minefield of cheesies, and then Bullseye winds up stepping on one. I always thought that was an intense scene as a kid, and I love it. And Bullseye even starts licking Al's fingers in that scene. But there's shortly after, there's this part where I think it was Buzz or Rex or someone's like, "Who's behind?" And then Slinky's like, "Mine." And then he's already there, but his behind's just slowly making his way. I don't know. I thought that was funny. Worth making a note of anyway. But yeah, then right after that, they cross the road in the pylons and cause a big crash and pile up on the road. And I've always loved this sequence since I was a kid as well. This movie it's really like, it's fun and entertaining, but it just doesn't quite feel as good as the first. But it does in its own way. Like, they're just two so different movies, but I don't know. I love it. So anyway, Al winds up calling in this guy to come and fix Woody, and the guy who comes in to fix Woody is actually the old guy from A Bug's Life that plays chess with himself. I love that. I didn't notice that before until this viewing. I really appreciate little things like that. I don't know why. But yeah, then in the toy store, Buzz finds a bunch of other Buzzes and winds up getting in a fight with himself. And it reminded me of, spoilers for Avengers Endgame, it reminded me of the Cap versus Cap fight in Endgame. Just Buzz on Buzz fighting. I don't know. I loved it. Then shortly after that, Rex is in the rearview mirror of this little toy car, just, and it reminded me a lot of Jurassic Park: The Lost World. I feel like that's what they were aiming for, but I'm not 100% sure. You guys can let me know. But then, not too long after that, we find out that Jessie, she's kind of like cranky in this movie. You don't really know why, but then you learn that she doesn't really trust humans because she got replaced by makeup, pulp culture, music, phones, and then she was donated to charity by her owner, Emily. So that's why she's a little iffy on Andy. So at first you're like, what's the big deal? And then you're like, okay, I guess I can get it. But yeah, then the gang is in Al's apartment, and they're holding Rex. They're like, we have to use your head. He's like, but I don't want to use my head. And they ram through the grate. I love that part. I've always loved that part. Rex is one of my favorite characters in this. Just his voice. I love it. But the real Buzz winds up opening the helmet of the fake Buzz's helmet just to show, like, I'm the real Buzz. He hits the helmet and he's like, can't breathe. And then they all are like, okay, we know what the real Buzz is now, because we already went through all this in the first movie. And then just to top it all off, Buzz lifts his foot up and shows the Andy on his foot. So they know who's who. And then Woody actually wants to go to Japan with the gang, like to the museum, because they're only worth any money or any value together as a whole. And Prospector, Stinky Pete, wants them to go, and Jesse kind of wants to go. Bullseye's just happy with whatever, but Woody actually kind of wants to go, but then winds up changing his mind. And then this is where you find out that Stinky Pete has actually been up to no good the whole time, and he locks the grate. He shows he's the one that hit the button on the remote to screw over Woody earlier in the movie. And basically he's been sneaking out of his package, and I always hated this part. I hate Stinky Pete. From the moment you meet him, you're just like unsure about him, right? But yeah, there's a Zurg fight sequence in the elevator, and at one point Zurg says something to Buzz, and he's like, "I am your father," and Buzz is like, "No," as it goes down. I love that scene. I love Star Wars, so obviously I'm gonna love that scene, but yeah, I had to make note of that. So the toys wind up stealing the Pizza Planet truck, and they drive it straight to the airport. I mean, I wouldn't say straight, but they get there. At one point, the Potato Head, like, the back hatch just opens and all his stuff comes flying out, almost like he shits himself. I like that. But they wind up defeating Stinky Pete, and they send him in a little girl's backpack, so she winds up probably putting a bunch of makeup and just destroying him, hopefully. But right before then, Pete winds up ripping Woody's arm a little bit more after being fixed. So it's basically where he was after Andy broke him, which I think I like that. Like, when you watch it, you're like, oh, come on, he just got fixed. But I like that. I think actually Andy or his mom wind up fixing him anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, basically Woody, to save Jesse, Woody's on the plane now, and they go through all this crate, like the luggage part of the plane, and then they're like on the wheel as it's about to take off. I've always thought that part was intense and crazy, and they wind up jumping off to Buzz, and then they're like all good and all is well, and then another plane comes in and lands, and they're all just right shook. I love that part. It was intense and funny. But back at Andy's place, after everything's said and done, Jesse does this thing on the Hot Wheel track that Buzz did in the last two movies. Anyway, when Jesse does it, Buzz just has this weird face and his wings eject up, almost as if he like got a boner or something. I roared when I watched that this time. It's small little things that you don't notice when you're a kid, and when you go back and watch when you're older, it's funny. But yeah, during the credits we get some deleted scenes, and there's one where all the Buzzes are there, and then the main Buzz burps, and then some of them laugh and some of them get kind of mad. I thought that was funny, almost like bloopers of the cartoon. Then there's a bunch of random clips of Woody writing all over Buzz on his helmet or on his wings or whatever, and all you hear is Woody, like Buzz getting mad at him the whole time. But then we see a scene of A Bug's Life, like the caterpillar and I think the ladybug or something. They're talking like, yeah, we got signed for another movie. He's like, yeah, too bad it's not A Bug's Life 2. And he's like, wait, what? And it zooms out, and then Buzz just karate chops the branch. I love that. I don't know how I don't remember that from being a kid. But yeah, that's all I have noted here. So yeah, overall 9.5 out of 10, just because the score and soundtrack isn't quite as memorable or up to par as I would have hoped. But overall, like, probably basically the perfect sequel. I highly recommend going out and getting it. Try and get it maybe even on 4K if you can. I think you can get it on Blu-ray. I waited till the 4K. But it looks phenomenal. I need an actual 4K player to see them all in 4K, but the Blu-ray is just as good. Like, it looks way better than the old VHS too. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of Toy Story 2 in the comments below, and have a good one, guys. Take her easy.